Welcome to the Humanized Books channel. Today's summary mini-book is based on Games People Play by author Eric Berne. Most conversations are not what they seem. Behind advice, arguments, jokes, and even kindness, there is often something else happening. A hidden script, a familiar pattern, a game. Games People Play is about the invisible rules that shape our relationships. Why the same conflicts repeat. Why people sabotage closeness. Why intelligent adults keep ending up in the same emotional places, again and again. These games aren't played for fun, they're played for payoff. Attention, control, justification, safety. This book doesn't judge, it explains. And once you see the games clearly, you start to notice them everywhere, including in yourself. Let's begin. Introduction. Why people play games instead of living openly. Games. People play is not a moral critique of human behavior. It is a clinical observation, written with clarity, humor, and a certain ruthless honesty. Eric Berne was not interested in why people should behave better. He was interested in why intelligent, well-intentioned people repeatedly sabotage their relationships in predictable ways. At the center of the book is a simple but unsettling claim. Much of what passes for social interaction is not spontaneous or sincere. It is scripted. People follow patterns learned early in life, patterns designed to secure attention, recognition, and emotional payoff, even when those patterns cause pain. Berne builds his theory from a biological and psychological foundation. Human beings need recognition as urgently as they need food. Deprived of it, they deteriorate. From infancy onward, we learn ways to get recognition, called strokes, and we organize our lives around obtaining them. When direct intimacy feels risky or unavailable, we substitute rituals, pastimes, and eventually games. Games are not played for fun, they are played for payoff. A payoff might be righteousness, victimhood, superiority, justification, or emotional release. The game always ends the same way, and the ending confirms a belief the player already holds about life. This book introduces transactional analysis, a framework that explains how people switch between different ego states and how hidden psychological moves shape everyday conversations. It offers a language for seeing what is usually invisible, the rules people follow without knowing it. Berne's final goal is not exposure for its own sake, it is freedom. Beyond games lies autonomy, intimacy, and honest connection. But reaching that state requires first seeing the games clearly, without excuses. That is what this mini-book explores. Part 1. Analysis of games. Part 1 lays the groundwork for everything that follows. Before Eric Berne names specific games, he explains the mental structures that make games possible. Without this foundation, games look like random bad behavior. With it, they appear logical, repeatable, and learned. Let's dive in the first part and its 5 themes. 1. The structure of personality. Berne begins by explaining that every person operates from 3 distinct ego states: parent, adult, and child. These are not metaphors. They are observable patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. The parent ego state contains attitudes, rules, and judgments copied from authority figures early in life. It speaks in shoulds, musts, approvals, and condemnations. The parent can be nurturing or critical, but it is always borrowed. The adult ego state processes information in the present. It evaluates facts, assesses reality, and makes decisions based on evidence rather than emotion or imitation. When the adult is active, communication is clear and flexible. The child ego state contains impulses, emotions, creativity, fear, and desire. It reflects how the person adapted emotionally as a child. The child can be spontaneous and joyful, or anxious and rebellious. Games occur when people stop communicating adult to adult and instead slip into parent-child or child-parent transactions without realizing it. 2. Transactions and hidden messages. A transaction is a unit of social exchange. On the surface, transactions often appear rational and polite, but Berne points out that many interactions contain a second, hidden level. In an overt transaction, words are exchanged between apparent ego states. In a covert transaction, a different set of ego states communicates underneath. Games always involve covert transactions. For example, Someone may ask for advice as an adult, but secretly be inviting criticism to confirm a belief that they are inadequate. The spoken message and the psychological message do not match. When the hidden message is accepted, the game begins. 3. Strokes and the hunger for recognition. At the biological core of Berne's theory is the need for strokes, units of recognition. Humans need acknowledgement to survive psychologically. When positive strokes are unavailable, people will accept negative ones. Games are efficient stroke-generating systems. They guarantee attention, even if it comes in the form of conflict, blame, or pity. This explains why people repeat painful interactions. The payoff is not happiness, but confirmation and recognition. 4. Time structuring. Berne explains that people structure time in predictable ways to avoid the risk of intimacy. There are 6 primary ways people structure time: withdrawal, rituals, bigness, games, nignisic, games, intimacy. Intimacy, games sit just below intimacy. They provide excitement and connection without vulnerability. Unlike intimacy, games are safe because they are scripted. 5. Why games persist. Games are learned early and reinforced repeatedly. Each game ends with a familiar emotional payoff that confirms a life position, such as, "I'm not okay, you're okay," or "I'm okay, you're not okay, you're not okay." The adult ego state could interrupt the game at any time, but doing so would threaten identity. Games feel safer than freedom. I makes a crucial point. Games are not accidents. They are systems, and once seen clearly, they can be stopped. End of Part 1. Part 2. The games. Part 2 is the heart of the book. Here, Berne stops speaking in abstractions and begins naming the games people play in everyday life. These are not metaphors. Each game follows a stable pattern, an opening move, a series of predictable responses, and a familiar ending that delivers a psychological payoff. What makes these games powerful is not complexity, but repetition. Once learned, they are played automatically, often for decades. Let's dive into the 23 themes of this part. 1. Why don't you? Yes, but. This is one of the most recognizable games. A person presents a problem and invites solutions. Others respond with sincere advice. Every suggestion is met with a reason it won't work. On the surface, the player appears to be seeking help. Underneath, the real goal is to prove that no solution exists. The payoff arrives when all helpers feel frustrated and incompetent, while the player confirms the belief, "My problems are unique and unsolvable." The hidden transaction is crucial. The helpers speak from the parent or adult offering solutions. The player's child rejects them all, reinforcing a sense of superiority disguised as helplessness. The game ends when helpers give up. The player remains unchanged, but psychologically reinforced. 2. If it weren't for you, in this game, a person explains their unhappiness or lack of achievement by blaming someone close to them, often a spouse, parent, or authority figure. The story is simple. I could succeed, be free, or be happy if it weren't for you. The blamed person becomes both jailer and excuse. The payoff is protection from responsibility. As long as someone else is held accountable, the player never has to risk change. The relationship may be unhappy, but it is stable. Paradoxically, the blamed person often cooperates by feeling guilty or defensive, which keeps the game alive. 3. Kick me. Here, a person behaves in ways that provoke rejection, criticism, or punishment, then uses the response as proof that people are cruel or unfair. The opening move is often subtle, lateness, incompetence, inappropriate behavior. The response from others is predictable irritation. When criticism arrives, the player experiences relief. The payoff is confirmation of a familiar belief. People always treat me badly. This game often originates in childhood environments where punishment was frequent and expected. The tragedy is that the player unconsciously invites the very treatment they fear. 4. Look how hard I've tried. This game revolves around failure framed as virtue. The player makes visible efforts that are doomed to fail, then seeks sympathy and recognition for the attempt. The real goal is not success, but absolution. If one can demonstrate effort, then failure feels justified. Others are placed in the role of comforter or judge. The payoff is moral superiority without risk. The player avoids the vulnerability of genuine commitment while still receiving strokes. 5. Now I've got you. This game involves waiting patiently for someone to make a mistake, then pouncing with righteous anger. The opening phase may last years. The player tolerates irritation, building internal resentment. When the mistake finally occurs, the emotional explosion feels justified and satisfying. The payoff is moral dominance. The player experiences a release of long-suppressed hostility, framed as justice. This game is common in hierarchical relationships and marriages where direct expression of anger feels forbidden. 6. See what you made me do. Here, a person commits an action they secretly wanted to take, then blames someone else for forcing their hand. The surface message is victimhood. The hidden message is permission. By shifting responsibility outward, the player avoids guilt. The payoff is emotional relief without accountability. 7. Life positions behind the games. Berne emphasizes that every game reinforces a life position, a basic belief about self and others. I'm not okay, you're okay. I'm not okay, you're not okay. You're not okay, you're not okay. I'm okay, you're okay. Games rarely change these positions. They stabilize them. This is why people replay the same conflicts with different partners. 8. Courtroom. This game is common in marriages and long-term partnerships. One partner presents complaints as evidence, while the other is cast as the accused. Conversations resemble legal proceedings rather than dialogue. The real goal is not resolution, but victory. Each side gathers facts, witnesses, and past incidents to prove moral superiority. The payoff is righteousness, not understanding. Intimacy disappears because both partners are defending positions rather than expressing needs. 9. Frigid woman and sexual power games. Berne describes sexual games where intimacy is withheld as a form of control. One partner signals availability while ensuring that consummation never occurs. The overt message is restraint or morality. The hidden message is power. The payoff comes from controlling desire and confirming a sense of superiority or safety. These games often protect the player from vulnerability while appearing virtuous. 10. Rapo. Rape as a psychological game. Berne's use of this term is clinical, not sensational. He refers to situations where individuals unconsciously provoke danger in order to confirm internal beliefs about trust, guilt, or punishment. The key point is not blame, but recognition of unconscious scripts. The payoff is tragic confirmation of a worldview rather than conscious intention. This section is controversial, but Berne's aim is to show how deeply games can operate below awareness. 11. Uproar. In this game, a person creates a crisis through exaggerated emotion. Shouting, threats, or dramatic displays force others into submission or rescue roles. The payoff is control through chaos. The player avoids calm negotiation because calm would require vulnerability and compromise. 12. Let you and him fight. Here, one person positions themselves as the prize while encouraging rivalry between others. This game generates attention, reassurance, and a sense of value without commitment. The payoff is being desired without having to choose. 13. Perversion. Berne uses this term to describe secretive sexual behaviors that allow a person to live out forbidden desires while maintaining a socially acceptable facade. The game structure protects identity. The payoff is excitement without accountability. 14. I'm only trying to help you, a social game disguised as kindness. Advice is offered repeatedly, without request, and often in ways that undermine the recipient. The hidden message is superiority. The payoff is dominance disguised as care. When rejected, the helper feels justified in resentment. 15. Alcoholic and junkie. These are not games of addiction itself, but of the social system surrounding it. Each role in the environment has a function: persecutor, rescuer, victim. The addict's behavior stabilizes relationships. Recovery threatens the system more than addiction does. The payoff is predictability. 16. Ain't it awful? This social game involves shared complaint. People bond by criticizing circumstances, institutions, or others. The payoff is connection without intimacy. No one is required to act or change. This game is common in workplaces and social gatherings. 17. Cops and robbers. This game requires two sides. One group breaks rules. The other enforces them. Both sides need each other. The robber gains excitement, recognition, and confirmation of a rebellious identity. The authority figure gains justification, purpose, and moral superiority. The payoff for both is meaning through opposition. Without the other, the game collapses. This is why purest oppression rarely ends crime. It often strengthens the script. 18. How do you get out of here? In this game, a person repeatedly places themselves in institutions or restrictive environments and then focuses obsessively on escape. The surface goal is freedom. The hidden goal is to avoid responsibility outside the institution. The structure provides identity, routine, and limitation. The payoff is relief from adult autonomy. 19. Leg pull. This game involves deception for amusement or dominance. The player misleads others not for material gain, but for psychological payoff. The satisfaction comes from knowing more than the other person. The payoff is superiority and amusement. This game erodes trust and isolates the player over time. 20. I'm a bastard. Here, a person behaves badly on purpose to confirm a self-image of worthlessness or evil. The payoff is certainty. If one believes oneself to be bad, then behaving badly removes internal conflict. Punishment becomes deserved rather than feared. This game often emerges in people who grew up with harsh moral judgment. 21. Ain't it awful in antisocial form? In its darker version, this game becomes bonding through shared contempt. Groups unite around hatred, cynicism, or disdain for society. The payoff is belonging without responsibility. Action is replaced by complaint and blame. 22. Why does this always happen to me? This game reframes repeated failures as fate. The player highlights misfortune to attract sympathy while avoiding examination of patterns. The payoff is exemption from change. 23. Pathological games and loss of flexibility. At the extreme end, games become rigid to the point of pathology. The adult ego state is rarely engaged. Outcomes are predictable and damaging. Berne stresses that the difference between normal and pathological games is not morality, but flexibility. When a person cannot stop playing a game even when the cost is extreme, autonomy is lost. End of Part 2. Next, Part 3. Beyond games. In Part 3, Berne turns away from diagnosis and toward possibility. After exposing the games people play, he asks what life looks like without them. The answer is not perfection or constant happiness, but autonomy. Autonomy, in Berne's terms, is the capacity to live without scripts, to relate without manipulation, and to respond rather than react. Let's dive in the 7 themes of this Part 1. What autonomy means. Autonomy is not independence from others. It is independence from compulsive patterns. A person may still participate in society, relationships, and roles, but they are no longer driven by hidden agendas. Berne defines autonomy through 3 capacities: awareness, spontaneity, and intimacy. Awareness means seeing reality as it is, rather than as one's childhood script demands it to be. The autonomous person notices when a game invitation appears and recognizes it without automatically accepting it. Spontaneity means having access to the full range of emotional responses, rather than a limited set of scripted reactions. Instead of always becoming angry, submissive, charming, or helpless, the person can choose how to respond. Intimacy means honest, direct contact without manipulation. It is the opposite of a game. In intimacy, there is no payoff beyond connection itself. 2. Script freedom and the end of inevitability. Berne introduces the idea of life scripts, unconscious life plans formed early in childhood. Scripts dictate expectations about success, failure, love, and endings. Games are the day-to-day mechanisms through which scripts are enacted. As long as games continue, the script remains unchallenged. Autonomy disrupts scripts. When a person stops playing games, they step outside the story they believed was inevitable. This can feel frightening because scripts provide certainty even when painful. 3. Why intimacy feels dangerous. Berne is clear that most people do not avoid intimacy because they dislike closeness. They avoid it because it threatens their identity. In intimacy, there is no role, no mask, no predictable ending. There is no familiar payoff. The absence of structure feels like danger to someone accustomed to games. This is why people often return to games after moments of genuine closeness. Games restore familiarity. 4. The price of freedom. Berne does not romanticize autonomy. Freedom comes at a cost. Without games, people lose excuses, righteous anger, victimhood, and moral superiority. Autonomy requires responsibility for one's choices and emotions. It removes the comfort of blaming others or fate. For many, this cost feels higher than the cost of suffering. 5. Choosing honesty over payoff. The central ethical choice in Part 3 is simple but demanding: honesty or payoff. Every game offers a payoff. Autonomy offers none. It offers only reality. Berne suggests that maturity is the willingness to give up psychological winnings in exchange for real contact. 6. A different kind of happiness. The happiness Berne points toward is quiet. It is not excitement, triumph, or validation. It is the absence of compulsion. When games stop, energy previously spent on manipulation becomes available for living. Relationships become simpler. Conflicts become clearer. Life becomes less dramatic, but more real. 7. The final position. Berne ends with a restrained optimism. People are not doomed to repeat their games. Scripts can be revised. Patterns can be interrupted. But no one can be freed by insight alone. Awareness must be practiced. Spontaneity must be risked. Intimacy must be chosen repeatedly. Beyond games lies autonomy. Not comfort, but freedom. End of the book. Reflective conclusion. Games. People play reveal something uncomfortable and deeply human. Much of our social life is not lived openly, but played. Behind polite conversations, arguments, and even acts of care, there are often hidden scripts seeking recognition, safety, or justification. These games are not signs of cruelty or stupidity. They are strategies learned early, repeated because they work, and preserved because they feel familiar. Eric Berne's lasting contribution is not simply naming these games, but showing that they are optional. Once seen clearly, a game loses some of its grip. Awareness opens the door to choice, and choice opens the door to autonomy. Beyond games lies a quieter way of living, one without dramatic payoffs, moral victories, or familiar resentments. In its place are awareness, spontaneity, and intimacy. This path offers no psychological winnings, only reality. But reality, lived without scripts, is lighter and more honest. The book does not promise that relationships will become easy. It suggests something more demanding and more freeing, that we can stop playing, speak directly, and meet others without masks. Not perfectly, but consciously. That, Berne implies, is what growing up truly means. Thank you for listening. If this audiobook challenged how you think, support the work by subscribing, liking, and sharing your thoughts below. Comments shape future content. Stay curious, stay aware, and return for deeper explorations. All the best, and take care of yourselves.